Well, we've got some amazing questions that have come in. I'm going to start off by reading the first one of them. Quite a few questions came in like this, but I'll just read this one. I think it summarizes both of them, or a few of them. How do you manage your time? How do you manage your time? How do you manage your time with everything you've got global responsibilities, you're traveling around the world, you've got incredible children that are growing up in church and still seem to be loving God, you're loving each other, you're still healthy. How do you manage it?
Yeah, look, I think it's a question we ask of anyone who we see seems to be, doing a lot, and there's a lot of people who are doing a whole lot more than us. And but I think one of the keys is you do have to be ruthless. In the sense that you have to work out what your priorities are and just commit to that. I mean, we know the reality of ministering, pastoring people is that you could be out all the time and you could be, with people all the time, and so you have to be careful and manage that. I think you have to acknowledge seasons. So our kids are at a season where, they kind of need us, but they're going to get older. They're getting older. They're not dependent on us so much. Last week we had one son paddling down the Orange River in Namibia, and, I can't see him on Find My Friends. So, because there's no, reception there. So I'm like, just trusting he's okay. And then we had our middle daughter in New York, put her on a plane, she flew there by herself, connecting with people we know over there, but, and then our oldest is at UCT. And so, managing all of that, there's an element of trusting God through it all, but there's also an element of knowing the seasons. Some of you don't have kids, your season looks different, you can use your time differently, and then when you have kids, that's going to look different, and then when they get older, it's going to look different again. So I think understanding and managing those seasons and just committing to understanding the priorities is really critical, and being ruthless in that to some extent. Yeah.
That's very good. Hello, everybody. How would I... well, hello, first of all. I haven't said hello yet. It's so nice to see everybody and be with you all. How would I manage my time? It's a good question. I mean, I'll tell you honestly how I set my week up now. I do what I feel is necessary. And so Monday is our day off. Sunday is a big day. Monday is my day off. Tuesday is meeting day.
So Monday, like that literally means we will have no meetings, we'll talk about church, but we yeah.
We plan our meetings
but we hang
on
out.
Monday.
We do go to have breakfast or
We
lunch.
do.
Go take Spencer for a walk on the beach. Spencer's our dog, in case you wondered.
But people say not to talk about church and to switch off. But to be honest, people have told us that for years. When you're together, just talk about other things. I'm like, we've got nothing to talk about if we don't talk about church.
That ended quickly. Okay, let's talk about church then.
Yeah, this is our passion. This is what we do. This is what we believe in. This is what we die for. And so to not talk about it is like an impossible feat. But so Monday is endeavouring to have a day off. And Tuesday is meeting day. That's a full day of meetings and planning and setting up. Wednesday, I try to block out now as a preparation day. If there's things I have to prepare for or think about or respond to, that's my day. And then Thursday, we run a lot of women's stuff and sisterhood. That's my sisterhood and planning and colour and everything day. And then Friday, whatever I want to do Friday.
Brilliant.
That's in a nutshell my week.
Yeah, and she keeps a discipline within all of those things.
I am disciplined, and I do like to work out and see my children.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
The only other thing I would add to that is I think for people in the room, depending on your role, what I've realized is the question I ask myself is, what is it that needs me at my optimum? Where do I need to bring energy? So there are certain meetings that need me and I need to bring energy. There's other meetings that someone else brings the energy. And so I've got to learn that, because I can't bring the energy to everything. You got to have a team who bring the energy, and that's different. There's time management, but there's also energy management. And you could get so caught up in a whole lot of things throughout the week, but the time it comes to the thing that needs you to bring your best, you're wasted. And so you've got to manage that in order to be able to be fully present at the certain things that really need you to lead them well in.
That's so helpful, eh? Not just time management, but energy management. Where do we really need to be on and focus and make sure that we're rested and we're there for that? Here's another great question. What would you say are the greatest characteristics of a healthy church? I want to know that question. What's on?
I think the greatest characteristic of a healthy church is when the people in the church have a healthy heart. And because if you can guard your heart, the Bible says do that above all else, because it's going to affect every single issue of your life.
Yeah.
And so if the heart of the people is healthy, I think the heart of the church will be healthy. And so you're constantly managing people's hearts and how everyone's going, and is everybody okay? Is everybody okay? Is everyone's hearts okay? That would be a foundational to a healthy church.
Yeah, I honestly believe, and it may sound simple, but most environments, whether it's a healthy church, healthy team, a healthy relationship, if there's no laughter, it's usually not healthy.
Yeah.
And so if you are still able to laugh, then things are pretty healthy. Sometimes it depends what you're laughing at. Sometimes it's either laughing or crying, but I think if your team can't laugh anymore because everything's so intense, or in your marriage, there's no room for you to laugh, or in your family, or just in the general church, if there's no laughter and fun, then it's probably not healthy, and so you need to deal with some things there, and I also think. Other characteristics are, just a desire to serve. Is there a genuine heart to serve? Is there a genuine heart to help others, to, whatever it takes? Hey, you need us to do this, we'll do this. When it kind of, when that hierarchical deal creeps in and seems certain things are beneath certain people, and you're kind of like, oh man, no, we're just all in. We're all in. We'll do whatever it takes. Yes, we recognize and we honor different responsibilities, but if that servant heart is still there, if you lose that, and you need to get carried in on a throne to the platform, that's probably things have gone a little too far, I don't know if anyone does that, but if you have a throne, I'd like to see it. I'd like, But so I think a healthy understanding of serving. It's key.
That's so helpful, eh? Just on that, something that I've noticed about you, and I think a number of years ago, you and I were in a conversation about this, is that within Hillsong, you never talk about another church, or if there is something bad happens at another church, you never want to hear it first from one of your staff. Could you explain that? Because how that relates to the heart of a leader, the heart of the health of the church, and the health of your team? Because I think if we're healthy, we know that healthy things grow. Unhealthy things can also grow, but healthy things grow. So we want to make sure that our hearts are healthy as leaders, our teams are healthy. But how do you manage that within it?
Well, I think number one thing I would say is that Jesus loves his church and he's all about building his church. And if we as the church are just criticizing and pulling down and destroying other churches, how are we going to be the force that God has put on the earth for good is if we are doing that, number one. And I find it so devastating that, churches would attack and destroy and pull down each other because, number one, I think it's evil. That's the truth. And number two is the greatest command of all time is to love one another. And we're, destroying each other with our words. So I think that is also devastating. And I also think, it says, who will ascend unto the mountain of the Lord and who will stand before him is those that have clean hands and a pure heart. Yeah. And how can you have a pure heart if you're just destroying and speaking against and attacking other churches? And so, I don't want to be the first. If I hear of this actually happened a few months ago. There was a pastor who was speaking somewhere in our circle, and something morally had gone terribly wrong. I had no idea. And someone told me about it, someone close to us, and I was like, I'm actually so glad I didn't know that. I wasn't the first to know. I'm not in the loop of people's failings and shortcomings, and I would much rather stand on that side than on the other side of knowing everything and being the first to address it. Good. And, if we say we're going to build a church to build a nation, we're going to change a city, a nation, and a continent, but we're so busy bagging each other out and pulling each other down and saying, have you heard this or have you heard that? Or, we're kidding ourselves if we think we're going to change the world. And so I just think I'm very passionate about that. We should speak well of one another. And, like Phil said, where there's time for honesty but optimism, you need to be honest, we'll be honest, but let's all be optimistic and believe the best and cheer one another on and be each other's greatest cheerleaders and greatest encouragers and speak life over each other in Jesus' name. And everybody said?
Amen. I think what I would add to that is, the question is, why are you having those conversations? Yeah. I think you hear news, you hear things, but why do you need to hear it? If you go, okay, honestly, what's going on inside of me? Why do I need to talk about that? Because what I've realized is, in our world, from Pastor Brian and Bobby all the way down, we've just been pretty much focused on building church. And if you're focused on doing what you're called to do and the vision, you're stirred with the vision, then you're not talking a lot about other people and other things. It's usually when something's happened in your heart and you've allowed offense or bitterness or something to get in, that's when we start to get into the negative conversation. And so I think we've got to constantly, look at what's going on inside of us. Maybe we haven't had the growth that we wished we had, and someone else is, and we're hearing about this person or that person. And so, dealing with that inside yourself is so important, because otherwise you just end up getting distracted. And I mean, that is one of the enemy's biggest plans, isn't it? Just get us distracted, get us focused on things that don't matter, so we never end up doing the things that really do. That's this whole thing to me that is a personal thing of going deeper, getting stronger. What are the few things I just need to go deeper in so that we'll become stronger in? And I don't need to worry about the distractions. I want to believe the best about other churches. I want to help other churches where I can. I want to do all of those things, but I want to keep my heart healthy in that way. Because I know if it's not, then it really does affect my capacity to lead in every way. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't spent that much personal time with you, but I've had quite a few conversations about church and leadership and about where we are and different things. And there'll be so many opportunities for you guys and your team to say something negatively about another church, and I've never heard anything come out of your mouth that's negative. And I've sometimes even probed, like, what about this? And then I change the subject very quietly. So just absolutely amazing. And I'm convinced, I personally am convinced that that's one of the reasons that one of the things that attracts God's grace and God's favor. And we all need it. I want God's grace and God's favor on our team. I want His grace and His favor on our church. But one of the things that's going to attract it to my life is if I speak well about other people, if I defend other people, if I'm intentional about doing that. I don't always get that right, but I've learned it from you. And I think it's something that we need to keep each other in check. We need to watch what we say about each other, especially when they're not around. Especially when we have the opportunity to do it, but we don't. I think that's when God is really honored.
I think what you realize in ministry is that people do things differently to you, and actually that's okay. It's like, rather than having to defend all the time and, well, look at that, I don't know about that. Well, you may do it differently. Fine. They may do it like this. But, to me, sometimes those arguments about certain things just really go nowhere. And I just think we're so much better if we just go, hey, they're great people doing a great job. They do it different from us, but hey, we want them to succeed, and just try and keep it as simple as possible. I know it sounds simple, but you got to keep working on your heart with that. And I've just been around long enough to realize that God uses all kinds of people and all kinds of different churches, and we don't have all the answers, and just want to celebrate, learn, and grow together.
So good, eh? I think, okay, we can all go home now. No, I'm joking. Here's another one. Can you tell us about the times when you planted a seed and they weren't growing? What did you do?
Planted a seed and it wasn't great. Well, I think here's one of the things. If you talk about that, kind of talking metaphorically, but maybe you're talking about people who come in and then, it doesn't work. Someone on your team, they don't work. Here's the thing that I've realized, okay? It's fine for people to leave your team. Okay, if someone leaves your team and goes and does something else, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything's bad. It just may mean that there's something different on their life and they need to go fulfill that. And I think if there's an area of insecurity where someone leaves and we think, well, obviously they don't, they're not blah, 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 because if they stayed, they would be. I just think, again, you've got to let that go. You'll plant some seeds and they'll grow and they'll do great. And, other seeds need to go somewhere else and grow and plant somewhere else. And again, that's fine. I've realized some people will be on our team for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, some for life. But I've decided that you're on for life. Okay, no, I'm just telling
all our
you,
team they're here for life.
You have to be on, because if you go, I'm going.
I'm staying.
But as long as they're on our team, I want them to have a great experience. If they're on for 5 years and then they go do something, I want them to look back on those 5 years and go, that was a brilliant 5 years. I learned so much. It's helped me for where I'm at now. And that we, celebrate, say, great, go, do your thing. So sometimes seeds that fail, what they will do is highlight our insecurities. And we have to deal with that. And, we may launch something, it doesn't work. We launched a service, it didn't work. We launched a location, it didn't work. Okay? It's not the end of your leadership. Okay? You tried something, it didn't work. Learn from it, move on. Okay? But if all of our security and validation is tied up in whether that worked or that didn't, whether everyone responded to that message or it didn't, there are seeds. I mean, you look at it biblically where it talks about, where the seed grows, and some scattered on the road, some's on the dirt, and some grows. And so we don't always know, but that is the thing about insecure leaders won't plant many seeds because they're afraid that they may not grow. Secure leaders plant a whole lot of seeds, and therefore they get a greater harvest. They probably also get a lot more weeds. They probably get a lot more failures, but they get a lot bigger harvest because you can't get one without the other. Okay, so that's where your security has to be able to handle the planting of seeds and having a go at things.
And I remember just a year ago, we made a few decisions. I don't know if they were necessarily the best decisions, and it really did affect our momentum. And I actually think last year I spoke here about arresting the momentum. And, so as I look back on that scenario, I think it was the greatest thing that could have happened to us as a church, because the lessons we've learned, the things we've grown from it, the insight and wisdom that you get from it, help to take you further than you could have gone before. So never let your setbacks set you back, I say, but learn from your setbacks and let them propel you forward. And I also, what was I also going to say? What was the question? Oh, yeah, this is what I was going to say. Because with Phil saying about people on our team and then leaving our team, initially that used to really affect me. And I would get really bothered by it. I'd get really insecure about it, and I'd get annoyed, and I'd start judging the person and saying all these things in my heart. But then I just over the course of time and addressing that insecurity in me, God started to say, well, stop looking at what you don't have and start looking at what you do have. And, as you continue to be honest to that, stop looking at what you don't have, look at what you do have. And as Pastor Jimmy preached in our church on Sunday, the miracle is always in the house. And I think the miracle is always in the house. And I think in the church, we've got to be careful that you don't just get so familiar with one another that you look at everyone with natural eyes. I think you've got to allow God to show you the prophetic in people and what God is trying to call out of them. And so if you can look past the natural and see the supernatural, the miracle's always in the house. Amen.
That's so good, eh? Like in Galatians, it says we'll reap what we sow, but it doesn't say that we'll reap where we sow.
Right.
And I think that's always been something for me. Our responsibility has just been to sow the seeds, because we will reap what we sow. So if we sow in leadership development, it doesn't mean I'm going to always reap from the leaders that I try to develop, but I will reap leadership development.
Yeah.
Our leaders will come into our world. They will come in, even though I might not have developed them, or Marinette and I might not have developed them, but they will come in because the principle is true. We will reap what we sow, not necessarily always where we sow. So just continue to sow that seed, be generous, believe, and that's what we're going to get, And I think that's just so true. Just keeping our hearts right. Sometimes we can also be insecure with all of this. Sometimes we can think I've failed. I can remember when Marinette and I first started out in Zambia, some people wanted to leave, and we were like, oh, what's wrong with me? They don't like us. But then realized that there's also this thing of chemistry. Yeah. And not everybody's going to like me, and that's okay, because I don't like everybody. I love everybody, but I like everybody. And that's okay. And some people might leave your team and go and be a great blessing to someone else. That's great. It just wasn't the right chemistry. It didn't fit into your team. And that doesn't mean you're bad. Doesn't mean they're better. That's cool. It's God's kingdom, and let's just celebrate, and let's just keep on sowing and keep on sowing and keep on sowing, because we will reap what we sow. Yeah. Great. Another question. What is the secret? Dun, dun, dun. Of your church growth. I'm sure there's a lot of them. What's the secret? I mean, from the outside, we look at Hillsong. I think sometimes we think that everything that Hillsong touches automatically succeeds, which I'm sure that is the case. But you've just seen incredible growth, not just in South Africa, but around the world. What do you think are some of the key ingredients that, if you could tell us, hey, you need to get this right, what would that be?
Well, I'm going to say this with all sincerity. I think the thing over Hillsong Church is great grace. That's what I think. I think it's...
She's saying, we're not that good.
We're not that good. Our church is not that good. I will always speak incredibly highly of Pastor Brian and Bobby, but he'll say himself, great grace. I don't know the ingredient. Why would Hillsong flourish in, Timbuktu, and someone's been there for 20 years plodding away and it doesn't look, I'm not saying it's what God's looking at, I'm just saying look more effective. I don't know, it's great, the grace of God, and it's a very unusual and unique thing. And I think if anyone ever tried to say it's because of me or this or that, I think we would start to miss what it actually is, because it's the grace of God. But however, saying that, and I believe that with all of my heart, however, saying that, I do believe Pastor Brian Houston is one of the greatest apostolic leaders ever. And I think his intuitive nature, his insightful nature to build and to grow and develop is, I think, incredible. And so, of course, God has put something upon his life and used him in that way. And so that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of shared some of the things, but Pastor Ryan and Bobby again, referencing them, have always just maintained a commitment to we're building local church.
Yeah.
We're not going to get distracted, and we're not going to get worried and concerned about what's going on around us. And Brian's always been committed to just, that's who we are. Let's just keep it healthy. Let's deal with issues in our own hearts, and And then let's dream big and believe God for great things. And so I think you have a commitment to that internal health and an outward vision of going for it faith-wise, that God is with us. And but again, I think there is the grace of God to a huge extent, and just being in an environment that is an encouraging environment. That's why things like this are so important. Because sometimes we just need to be around other encouraging people. Maybe a lot of what we're facing and some of the environments we're in aren't helpful and aren't conducive towards that. I haven't had a lot of other church life experience other than Hillsong. And, so it surprised me. I remember years ago going to other churches that didn't do things the same as us. I just thought everyone did, And then, certain conversations that people have, and I'm like, we've never really had conversations like that. And so I think Brian was very good at protecting everyone from some of the negativity and just keeping just a simple, healthy faith to believe that God can use us to do great things. Yeah.
So good, eh? I remember listening to Brian a few years ago, and you're saying that churches have a soul, and if the soul's healthy, like the passage in 1 John says, if you'll prosper even as your soul prospers. If the soul of the church is healthy, it will grow. It's got to make sure that it's healthy, that its core is healthy, that its leaders are healthy, that we're not talking badly. But another thing that I think attracts, is God's grace, but there are certain things that we can do to attract God's grace, that would allow God's grace to be on us in a greater or a lesser measure. And one of the things that attracts God's grace is being generous. And one of the mottos of Hillsong Church is to champion the cause of the local church. They're not championing their cause of their local church, they're championing the cause of the local church. There's a deep desire to be generous, to see other churches succeed. And when we're just trying to build our thing, I'm convinced we're not going to experience that grace. But when we lift up our eyes and we want to champion other people's things, or we want to just see other people succeed, somehow God blesses us, He breathes in us, and so we can do more, to help others to do more, and then it's just get this incredible momentum that you guys are experiencing.
And I think Pastor Brian's always been unapologetic about building the church, and that is where it begins and ends. That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
But he would never focus on the growth. He always would focus, like you were saying, on the health, because he'd say healthy things grow. And I think if we can continue to focus on the health of our life and the health of our church, healthy things do have a way of growing and getting stronger.
Brilliant. I got one more question. Last question is, how do you go about selecting the right team? What do you look for in potential leaders to select?
Have you ever seen like a Tough Mudder challenge?
What?
So, like we put everyone through a very physical, and there's, look, I don't want to go into details, but like it's brutal.
It's brutal.
There's under barbed wire, there's, it's, you could end up in False Bay in the middle of the night. You have to swim your way back to shore at Musenberg. You got to set the standard. You got to set the bar high.
Okay, I'll take over. What we would look for in a team, well, I think what we would look for in a team is we would look from within. We would not go outside and bring in. We've actually only done that on one occasion, and it has proven to have its challenges. So I think if you can raise up from within, you're going to raise up sons and daughters of your house, and it's always an awesome way. We would look for people that are faithful, that obviously love Jesus with all of their heart. We would look for people that are not waiting for a title, but they're already in the mix, going for it. We would look for people who are consistent. We would look for people who have incredible character. We would look for people that are trustworthy. All of those qualities that are under the ground that nobody can see. And I think time always is a great test of what's inside a person. So we'd allow people time to find their way and develop and grow, and I watch and observe and look around and see, and you look for all those qualities, and then you continue to bring people forward. And I think I don't look at talent, and I don't necessarily look at gift, although I do look at gift, but I'm not interested in gift if they don't have the right heart. And I'm not interested in talent if they can't be consistent and faithful. And so I think those underlying things are what matters. And God has gifted all of us and with talents and gifts. So we need those for the church. But the most important thing is, do they love Jesus? Are they faithful? Do they love the vision of the house? And we say 3 things if you're going to serve in our church. You have to, number 1, you actually have to love South Africa. Yes, you have to love, and you have to love Africa. Number 2, you actually have to love Hillsong Church and the way we do church. And number 3, they have to love Phil and I. Because you can't have people on your team that don't like you, because it's always going to be difficult. And so I think if those 3 elements are there and they're consistent and faithful and love the Lord with all their heart, you can build something really great together.
That's so helpful, Leo.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You know, there's some people who go, well, I love Hillsong, but I don't love South Africa. Well, you need to go somewhere else, you know. And it's the reality. And it's because there are things about South Africa that you have to embrace and choose to love. And, you know, if you love South Africa, but you don't love Hillsong's culture, then you need to be somewhere else. So it's just a great little test to kind of go, okay, where's your heart in these three things? And if you love Brian and Bobby, but you don't love us, you know, that's not going to work either. Yeah. And, you know, occasionally in the past, I've seen people who are like, knock us out of the way to get to Brian and Bobby. And I'm like, well, I don't know whether that's quite healthy. You know, and so, you know, you got to manage those things. I think, you know, character and competency, those 2 key elements. People have to be competent. They have to be able to do their job. But they also have to have character. And, you know, we've had people who are highly competent, like incredibly talented, and they haven't lasted because they haven't had the character that's been necessary to go with it. And I think, to be honest, that's the one that is the clincher. You know, do they have the character and you know, the heart to be part of your team? Because you can find a lot of talented people, but people with that right heart and that right spirit, I would rather work with them and train people to get better than just have, you know, a whole bunch of, I don't know, show ponies who...
Brilliant.
Anyway.
Any final thoughts?
My wife goes, anyway, like in that he's about to say things and he shouldn't say them.
Any final words? Last thoughts? Anything extra?
Any what?
Final thoughts, last words?
Well, I would just love to say thank you for listening to us, and and I'm really glad we're all here together, and I believe these next 24 hours are going to be incredible, and I believe we're going to go back to our churches in greater strength and power, and I believe the greatest days of Africa lie ahead of us, and I believe this is a moment for Africa to shine, and I believe God is shining his light across this great land like never before, and we all get the greatest privilege of stewarding what I believe is the greatest move of God that Africa has ever seen. And everyone who believed it said, Amen.